Hi, I'm Josh, and in this video we're going to cover how to make chiptune on the Dirtywave M8. And this will be relevant whether you have the M8 Model 1 or Model 2. I'm just going to be using the Model 1 for this video. And for those unfamiliar, chiptune is a musical genre that is harkening back to or often using the sounds of older video game systems. Think like Nintendo Entertainment System, the Sega Genesis, or the Game Boy. They're full of marvelous bleeps and bloops, and they sound a little something like this. Gotcha. Chiptunes are fun to write, and the M8 is a great platform for writing them. Now, if you have your own Dirtywave M8, feel free to play along at home. We're going to make the skeletons of a chiptune track. I'm going to talk about the sound design aspects and some compositional tricks that I like to use to make things interesting. This is going to be a pretty idealized version of songwriting. Usually it's quite chaotic, but this will be a little more structured. But as we're going, I'm going to have a screen capture of the Dirtywave M8 next to the device itself. I think that the M8 screen is perfectly fine, when you're using it in person, but on video it can be kind of hard to see. Let me know if you think that is helping or if you think it's more intrusive, just so I know for the future. And since we're going to be talking about chiptunes, if you have a favorite piece of music from a retro video game, leave it in the comments. And kind of on that same note, if you enjoy the video and you have not already, please consider leaving a like and hitting subscribe. Apologies both for the past and in advance. If you hear jingling in the background, that's the bells on our cat's collars. But we'll jump right in to writing chiptune on the Dirtywave M8. So when you boot into the Dirtywave M8, you've got this blank screen. This is the song view where you can see your various chains. And if I press edit, I make a new chain and I hold shift and I press right. I go into that chain and here are phrases. And if I make a new phrase, I hold shift and I press right. And then inside the phrase is where you can put notes. And that's the structure of your songs on the Dirtywave M8. You've got your phrase, the notes, and then your phrase. A little bit bigger, you've got your chain, and then those chains come together to make your song. Before I even start, I'm actually going to hold edit and just press up here and make a chain FE. And in this chain, I'm going to put phrase FE and put the same thing 4 times. It'll be a blank set of 4 phrases, and I'm going to use these as spacers. I remember seeing this done in a Red Means recording video. Previously, I just would choose some random number. I don't know why. Using FE makes more sense. And if I hold Shift and Option, I can highlight them all, hit Option again to copy, Shift and Edit to paste. I could fill in this whole thing with silence. It would be a John Cage cover. But for now, I just want 2 lines. So I'm going to hold Shift and Option and then highlight them all and press Option and Edit at the same time, and they're out of here. So what I want is for this song to start on a pickup, so there's going to be a little bit of melody that'll lead in to the actual body of the song. So first, we're gonna make a bass line, which is not gonna have the pickup, so we'll start on the second line. On the Dirtywave M8, the numbers start at 0, 0, so the second line is 0, 1. I hope that's not too confusing. But I'm going to go to channel 1. I don't know why I'm pointing because, you've got the screen capture as well. But channel 1 is this first channel. And then in line 0, 1 of channel 1, I'm going to hit edit twice. And that's going to give us, actually, we can go to phrase 0, 0 chain 0, 0. And we're going to have, we have phrase 0, 0 in here. So let's use it. I'm going to hold shift and right. We'll go into it. And I'm going to add a new note. You didn't hear anything, and that's because we haven't actually set any settings for the instrument. I'm going to hold shift and right, and we're in the instrument screen. I'm going to set it to wave synth, and I am going to name it BASS, bass, just so that we can keep track of what's going on. Now, if I hit play, you'll hear a note because now it's got an instrument assigned to it. And we're going to change first the shape to a triangle wave. So in a lot of chiptunes, you don't have to do this, but triangle makes a great bass sound. You can hear it's got a nice hearty bass sound to it. Now, first, I'm going to move this down to F3. That's the note I'd like it to be at. And I'm going to go back into my instrument screen, and if I hold shift and hit up, that brings us into this modulators screen. So I'm going to choose the first mod, which is AHD envelope. That's attack, hold, decay. I'm going to have it go to the volume. So now instead of just holding out until the end of time, it will hold out like this, which is very nice. I'm going to add another F3 on step 6 and another on step C. So not the most exciting composition yet, but what we have is this. I would like it to be a bit faster, so before we mess around with the chain anymore, I'm going to hold Shift, and on the song view, I'm going to hold Shift and up into the project screen, and I'm going to set this tempo up here to 185. All right, I like that more. Now, when you have a phrase and you have multiple instances of it, so if I put another 0, 0 down here, oops, that's an FE, another 0, 0 down below that first one, it's going to be the exact same as any other 0, 0 on this project. And if I change one, it's going to change all of them. However, as a way to, pitch around that bass line without having to change the notes, what we can do instead is use this transpose option that is to the right on the chain screen. So this measures in semitones. That's like a half step. So, if you have a C, one semitone up is C sharp or D flat, depending on how you want to discuss it. And then D, E flat or D sharp, you get it. So we'll keep our first 0, 0 untransposed. Our next one, however, we're going to bump up 5 semitones. So instead of playing Fs, it's going to play B flats. The next one, we're going to bump up 7 semitones. So instead of playing Fs, it'll play Cs. And the last one, we will bump down 3 semitones. So instead of playing Fs, it's going to play Ds. And now we have this. That is more of a thing. Let's go back to our song and make a new phrase. So for this next phrase, I'm also going to have it just be 4 0 zeros. It's going to be transposed differently. So here's a fun little button combo. I'm going to make another chain 0, 0, and I'm going to hold Shift and press Option and then Edit. And it says down at the bottom, cloned chain. So like with phrases, every single chain 0, 0 is going to be the same throughout the song. And if I make changes to one, it's going to change all of them. But if I want something that's really similar, a shortcut is to just clone it. So now this phrase, or this chain, 0, 1, is also going to be phrases 0, 0 4 times and transpose the same way. But this one I can change without messing up the chain 0, 0. So this one, I'm going to put the first, we'll go up 7 semitones, up 5, and then up 7. Then we'll leave it at 0 semitones, so it'll be the same it was, and then up 7 again. So now our whole pattern, or our whole song so far, sounds like this. This will do for a nice simple little bass line. Let's move on to writing some melody. Like I said, I wanted this melody to start on a pickup. So I'm going to make a new chain here. I always have to catch myself because I want to say phrase because I'm more used to phrase as a musical term. I come from like a background with classical piano, but chain is the appropriate term. So pardon me if I pause or misspeak every now and again. This chain, I got it, is only going to be one phrase long. And you might notice that these FEs are all 4 phrases long. So I'm just going to change this FE to an FD and put one phrase FE in there. So that's one silent phrase. And if I make all of these FDs, they'll all be the same. So now I can have chain 2 be a single phrase long without it throwing off the timing of the entire song. So once more, we're going to make a phrase. And I'm going to double tap Edit, so it'll go to the next blank phrase or next available one. And we're going to start on line 6. I'm going to make an F6 and a new instrument. Again, double tapping Edit, Shift and Right. And now we are able to have another wave synth. And this one's going to be set to pulse 50%. And it sounds like this. Beautiful. I'm going to hold Shift and press up. And like we did before, I'm going to set the first envelope to volume. And this one, I'm going to add a little bit of hold. I'm just going to set it to 5. And as I'm adding the hold, you might notice at the bottom of the screen, it says like 0 steps, 5 ticks, or it might say like 0 steps, 4 ticks. A tick is 1/6 of a step. So you can fine tune things in terms of like attack, decay, hold, down to, 1/6 of a step. 1/6 of a step. That's a tongue twister. Back to our phrase. I'm going to add on the line 8, a C7. I'm going to add on line A, a D. And then on line E, I will add another F6. And it sounds like this. So that's fun. A couple other things you can do. You might have noticed to the right of where we're putting in the notes, there's these effects columns. If I hold edit and press up, it'll just take me into a screen where I can choose from any of the effects. If you go up to sequencer effects, there's one PSL or pitch slide, and that's how many ticks you want it to take for one note to slide to another instead of just jumping to it. And if I turn it up, let's say to 3, it sounds like this. Compared to, so you can hear it's small, but it's a little bit, it's fun. I'm also going to add next to this last F6, there's one here, PVB, which is pitch vibrato. So it'll wobble the note up and down pitch-wise. And with that, it sounds like this. I just think it gives it a little more like interesting character and texture. And that's just our pickup, but we're going to go now into channel 2 and line 01, double tap edit, and we've got another new chain, but we're actually going to make the first phrase of this chain the same as the last one. On the second spot in that chain, I'm going to place a phrase 01, but again, I'm going to hold Shift, press Option, and then edit and clone it. This one will change by having that last F6 be an A6 instead. So it sounds like this. We're going to do a double tap on edit in the line 2. Saying second line would be wrong, but it's what my brain wants me to say. And we'll get phrase 03. We're going to go into there. And in this one, on step 2, we'll put a G6. On step 6, we'll put an F6. On step A, we'll put another G6, and then on step E, we'll put an A6. So it sounds like this. Oop. Next to these notes in phrase 03, we're going to do our pitch vibrato again. I gotta say, I love vibrato. Vibrato and the pitch slide are like my two favorite chiptune sounds that are not an actual sound on their own. And for the last phrase in this chain, because it should be 4 phrases, we'll put another 01. So now this, with our bass line, sounds like this. Let's add another new chain and a new phrase. And in this one, we're going to go to step 8 and put an A6. Now, we are going to put the pitch vibrato on, but we're also going to add another effect. If you remember when we were adding the modulators, the exact thing that causes the note to hold out is appropriately called hold. And so we can go into these effects and change per step what the hold for that envelope is. And right here, we're going to set the hold to 27. And now this note will hold out for, well, it says at the bottom, 6 steps, 3 ticks before fading out. And we're going to do just another new phrase. In this one, on step 0, we'll put G6. And we'll do the same hold and pitch vibrato. To make it a little bit faster, I'm going to hold Shift and Option and highlight these and then press Option again to copy them. The copy and paste will work for the effects. It'll work for the notes. You can even copy instrument parameters and paste them. It's a really versatile thing to use, and it also just saves you having to dig through that menu every single time. And I'm going to add an F and then Shift Edit to paste those effects. And then I'm going to add another A6, and Shift and Edit to paste those effects. And this is on step 8. And now we'll make one new phrase, go in and put an F6, and again, Shift Edit and paste our effects. And we'll end this chain with another phrase. I believe it was 01 was, yeah, the ba-ba-da-ba. And now this phrase, or sorry, this chain sounds like this. One other thing that I think would sound great here, I'm going to go into this first phrase and I'm going to add on step C another effect, which is, let's see if I can find it, PBN, or pitch bend. So kind of like the pitch slide, this one is going to change the note, but instead of having it like slide to a specific one, it's just going to bend it a certain amount of steps I can't remember if it's every step or every tick. All I know is if the thing at the bottom of the screen says -7, that will sound all right. I'm going to copy and paste this, and we're going to put it in phrase 5. We're going to put it on step 4 and step C, and I'll add another layer of FEs to make everything look somewhat symmetrical. Now it sounds like this. I think it's time to add some drums. In channel 3 on step 01, I'm going to double tap edit, and we've got another new chain. I'm going to double tap edit here in the first step of that new chain to add a new phrase. And in this phrase, we're going to, on the first step, we're going to add another note. We're going to move this one down to F3 and then double tap for a new instrument. And this will be a rare non-wave synth instrument, but we'll still use a synthesizer engine. We'll go over to macro synth and set the shape to, well, if we go a little bit of a ways in, 22 is kick. I'm going to put the timbre at 60 and the color at B0. I'm also going to pump the amp up to 11 so that it, it hits a little bit harder. And now you can hear we have a kick. And I'm going to put the same thing on step 8. Then on step 4, I'm going to put the note G6, double tap, and we've got a new instrument again and macro synth, but this time we're going to make it 24, that's snare. I'm going to set the timbre to EF. I'm going to set the color to CF. The amp, again, I'm going to bump up to 11. And now we've got this. And I put another snare hit on step C. So not the most inspired drum line. Let's add some hats to it. On step 2, I'm going to add the note GB, which is the highest it goes, and I'm going to make a new instrument. And this will be wave synth this time. I'm going to name it HHC for closed hi-hat. And I'm going to set the shape, oops, I went past it, to 08. That's noise. It sounds like this. If you heard that big surge of white noise, that was our hi-hat for now. I'm going to set the filter to a high-pass filter, and the cutoff I'm going to set to 90. So this is going to filter out a lot of the lower frequencies. And I have some notes off screen and I got mixed up. I'm actually going to set the cutoff to BF and the resonance to 90. We're going to go up to our mods and set the first one to volume as we do, and we'll set the decay to 20. I'm going to add another one of these closed hi-hats on step 3, and in fact I'm going to make it even tighter and set the decay to 10. I'm also going to add ones on step 6, 7, and A. This has got more texture, but we'll put on step E another GB and make it a new instrument. This one will also be a wave synth. I'm going to name it HHO for hi-hat open, and we'll set it to noise once more. And again, we're going to make it have a high pass filter. I'm going to put the cutoff at AF. So the cutoff is a little bit lower, which is going to allow a little bit more lower frequencies in. but the resonance will still be at 90. And we'll set the first mod to volume again, but put the decay at 50. And now our drum pattern sounds like this. And if I add, let's see, 4 more of those, and then here we can just make another chain 5. It sounds like this. Let's add an arpeggiated sound. We're going to make a new chain in channel 4, that'll be chain 06, and a new phrase in it, which will be phrase 08. And I'm gonna put a note here on step 4. I'm gonna change this to an F6, and we're gonna make a new instrument, and it's going to be wave synth. And I'm gonna name it ARP, A-R-P, and we'll make the shape be a 25% pulse. And on the mods, the first one will be set to volume, and we'll set the decay to 50. I'm going to put another F on step 6, and then on step C, I'm going to put a C7. Not very ARPy, but we're going to ARP it up. I'm going to go into our effects and go to the effect ARP, A-R-P, and this is going to, I believe at tick rate, so each note is going to be like 1/6 of a step long. It's going to play notes going up by however many semitones we tell it to. So the first one, we're going to tell it to go up 4 and 7. So it'll say 47 on it. And then we'll do the same for the other F6. And for the C7, it's going to be 5 and 9. And it sounds like this. Something that I like to do when I have a part like this, where I have like a few hits and they're kind of supposed to support the background, is to use the pan effect, which is, I've lost it, which is down in the lowest menu. I'm gonna go to pan, and I'm gonna set the first one, if you look at the bottom of the screen, to -75. And I'll do the same for the other C, and then the last one I'll set to +75. And now it sounds like this. Unfortunately, my camera cut out for a moment and I lost a bit of footage, so we're going to do a little bit of recovery, and I'm going to show you what I was doing until I noticed that it had stopped recording. I'm so sorry about that. So I took that phrase, 08, and I put it in 4 times in chain 6, and the first one is transposed up 5 semitones, the next one up 7, and the last one was transposed down 3, but because it's a D minor instead of an F major, I changed the ARP notes to 3/7 for the first 2 and 5/8 for the last one, and I made a new chain with the same 4 phrases of that 08, transposed 5 semitones up, 7 semitones up, 0, and then 7 again. And that all together sounds like this. The sound that we're going to add now is one of my favorite chiptune sounds, a Garbly square wave. The way we do it, well, in this chain that I added, I've already got a phrase with a note in F6 that's on a new instrument that is set to pulse 12, and that's not really going to matter much, and you'll see why in a moment. And if I hold shift and go up, I set the first mod to volume. I kind of do that all the time, so it's not that surprising. But from this instrument screen, if you hold shift and hit right, you'll go to the table view. So previously we've added effects to the sequence itself. However, if you just want a bunch of effects to play really rapidly on like every single time a note from an instrument plays, you can add them to a table. And what I'm going to do is, for the first effects, I'm going to grab, it's down here in the first one, we're going to grab OSC, that's oscillator shape, and I'm just going to put it in there a bunch of times. I think that should be enough. And what this is going to do is we can change that oscillator shape. So we'll let it start at 0 for the first 2. and then 1 for the next 2, 2 for the next 2, and then 3, then 2, 1, and we'll add 1 more. Actually, we won't need a repeat for it because it already starts with 2 zeros. And on this last one, I'm going to add another effect. Let's see if I can remember where it is. THO. So this is it's going to have the table go back to a certain position on the table, and we'll leave it at 0, 0. Now our note, because it's going to change its oscillator shape rapidly and keep going through that as it fades out, will sound like this. Like I said, a garbly sound. I'm going to go back into it, and on the filter I'm going to set it to a bandpass filter. So this has like a certain range, and whether a note is too high or too low outside of that range, it then starts to filter out frequencies. And I'm going to set it to 8F. Now I'm going to go and put an F7 at step 4, a C7 at step 8, and an A at step C. And we'll have it be the same 4 times. Now this last one is going to be over like a D minor in the bass. So I'm going to change the first note to a D6, then D7, A6, and F6. Now the first phrase in this chain we won't transpose. The next one will bump up 5 and then 7. And then we're going to make a new chain. And it's going to have this phrase, 0A, 4 times, transposed up 5, up 7, not transposed, and then up 7. Now, I'm going to do a quick copy paste so we can hear how this sounds. And as a quick note, if you want to bring up the oscilloscope on the Dirtywave M8, you press all 4 arrow keys. And this is how our song sounds. As promised, we've made the bones of a chiptune track. If you've been following along, or if this, pushes you into making your own chiptune, please share whatever you create. If you post it online in the comments, I'll do my best to listen to anything and everything that gets shared. And I thought that we could close off by hearing the ideas that I presented here. I took them and tried to make a more fleshed out track. So I thought we'd close out by listening to that. Before we do, I wanted to thank you so much for watching and listening. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider leaving a like, hitting subscribe if you haven't already. And like I mentioned earlier, let me know in the comments what your favorite piece of retro game music is. I'm going to get ahead of the game a little bit, pun sort of intended, and say that 2 of my favorites are Dr. Wily's Castle from Mega Man 2, and then the original Brinstar theme from Metroid on NES. But anyway, with that note, let's play us off. And once more, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.